everybody. Welcome back to the Modern Customer Podcast. I'm your host, Blake Morgan. Today, my guest is Kimberly Wyman, the Vice President of Customer Support for T-Mobile for Business. Kimberly leads the organization responsible for the full life cycle support experience for all of T-Mobile's business and government customers, from self-employed entrepreneurs who need a few work phones and tablets to the biggest entities in the country with the most complex connectivity solutions. T-Mobile for Business is 6,600 employees. Prior to her almost 20 years at T-Mobile, she worked at Home Depot and Sears as well. Today, we're talking about operations and customer experience. We are talking about creating that customer-centric culture that T-Mobile is known for. And we talk about individual mindset to create a customer-focused mindset for yourself every single day. Please enjoy Kimberly Wyman. Kimberly, welcome to the Modern Customer Podcast, all the way from beautiful Washington. Thank you so much for being here.
Well, Blake, thanks for having me. I'm excited.
T-Mobile is one of my go-to brands when I think about customer experience and innovation, all the way back to the early days, which you got to see when John Legere announced that T-Mobile was going to be the Un-carrier back at CES. Could you talk about your journey, the rocket ship that T-Mobile has been, and what it's just been like to be there from the early days?
Yeah, absolutely. It has been, to your point, a journey. But what has been so exciting about it is the one thing about that journey is the customer's always been at the center of what we did. When John Ledger joined the team, he really spent time focusing and understanding what our customers, what their pain points were. And those are things that we went and did. That's how the Uncarrier was born. And so to be able to have a company where truly the customer's at the center, it's special. And now with Mike Sievert and where we're going from a technology company or into a technology company, from a wireless company, again, it's centered around the customer and what they need and how we best take care of them.
Yeah, John Leisure. Some days I pronounce it John Legier. Poor John, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm really trying to get your last name pronunciation perfect. John Leisure, like the early days, I love seeing his transformation from corporate CEO to rock star. And then like initially creating that culture where he would go take selfies with all the contact center agents and
Mhm.
just said, here's an industry where customers are largely unhappy, don't trust the businesses they're doing business with, change the culture, did so much transformation, and then you see T-Mobile get to basically the number one spot out of all the carriers. What do you think the culture how would you describe that culture, especially in the early days?
Yeah, it was really about putting the power with our frontline teams. One of the things I think is so critical is, the brand is held in the hand of each and every one of our frontline members, right? Whether it's in a retail store, whether it's a field tech out in the markets, or it's one of our customer care agents that are out there. And if we can get them with the feeling that they can take care of any customer and they've got the resources and the power and the leadership behind them to be able to do that, you can go influence that. And so that was a big piece of that culture change of, we always thought, our frontline was at, the center of what we did. But what John brought really was really putting that into action, really giving them the ability to do that. Whether it was talking with them one-on-one, whether it was listening to the concerns that they had, it really was not about hierarchy. It wasn't about levels. It was about, hey, let's go talk to the people who know what's going on. And that's our frontline teams.
Mo
And then listen to them and move on and like go do that.
Kimberly, most brands would love to have this type of culture where everyone is wearing that T-Mobile magenta, where employees just feel like this extreme ownership, where they care, and it's just like this vibe that everybody's a part of and they're excited to come to work and to show up. What are the tenets of a customer-centric culture other than what you said, that frontline employees feel listened to?
I think one of the key things is it really has to be throughout the company. And what that means is the person that sits in finance needs to understand that it's a customer centric culture. The person that may be bringing products and services to life in our product team have to do that. And they have to put the customer's needs at the very center of what they're doing when they're building that. So if we're building a product or a service that isn't good, how do you make sure that you have your customer service team sitting there saying, have we thought about that this way? Do we need to adjust? And I think that's one of the things is that it's not just a culture for somebody who talks to customers. It's a culture for a company who wants to be customer centric. And knowing that and understanding that does create differences. You look at the problems to solve differently. And so that I think has been one of the biggest things is it's not just a culture in a customer facing organization. It is a culture that goes throughout and really helps everybody understand without the customer and delivering what we need, we're not going to be able to get to the accomplishments that we want.
So I've personally worked with wireless carriers before, and one of the biggest challenges that I've heard is just reducing back end complexity at these big companies. And a lot of that is operations, your specialty. Tell us why are operations an important piece of a customer experience strategy?
If you want to do anything at scale, right? If you want to help more than one customer, it's really easy to have a great experience when you've got one, two, or a small number of customers. But when you're trying to do that for hundreds of thousands of customers, for millions of customers, you have to have guidelines that help people understand what are the boundaries, but not so tight that it doesn't allow them to be able to do what they need. And I think that's where operations comes in. When you have people that have spent time really, face to face with customers over their years that then go and build the way that you want to be able to service customers, it allows you to say, what are the guidelines, not processes, because if you think about, I use guidelines very carefully, right? We don't have scripts, we don't have strict policies. It's what are the guidelines that our teams need? What do they need to work around to be able to go do that? And that's something that you can then scale this unique experience that's about an individual customer and still implement it the way you want to do it. It's also one of those things that if you're doing it for the right reason for the customer, it's never going to be wrong.
Mhm.
Maybe we look at it a different way. We might need to do it the next time. But I've always shared with my teams, if you're making a decision that's in the best interest of our customer or really our frontline team, it's never going to be a wrong decision.
So it seems to me that when you are a customer focused brand, you have to be willing to lose a little money. I think about this in my own life as the 80-20 rule. Like 20% of things when you have little kids, like your working mom, they just end up being kind of thrown out and it just things go wrong is the point I'm trying to make. And
Mhm.
you eat some of the cost. So for some people listening, they might be saying, "Well, yeah, I mean that all sounds great to make the customer centric decision, but today that's actually going to cost me a lot more money and I'm not really prepared to do that." So what is the argument that you make if some decision is going to cost a bit more money today? Why should people listening make that decision?
I like to think of it really kind of in three different parts. You bring together the customer piece, you bring together the business problem that you're trying to solve or trying to achieve, and then you bring really the in-store and the on phone experience. And collectively, you have to look across all of those to say, what's the right decision that both balances keeping our customers, keeping the promises that we've made to our customers, as well as, yes, there could be some cost associated with that, but does that cost outweigh, whether a customer is going to leave, whether the customer is going to, go to another, competitor, or if they're going to be so unhappy that they choose not to actually grow with you. Maybe they keep their one line with you, but they aren't going to grow with you when they need to go get a different product or service. They look elsewhere. And so I think it's really about having that balance. And too many times, I think companies look at just the one side of it, right? Maybe just the financial piece of how much it's going to cost. They don't look at the pain maybe it's going to cause that customer. And also, what are the risks that are happening with that as well? What are the risks if you make a particular decision? And do you understand that? And are you aligned with those risks? Because you're always going to make decisions that have risks, whether it's financial risk of something it might cost or risks around losing customers or making a customer unhappy. And you have to really make sure all of those have equal weight at the table, I think, when making those decisions.
So let's switch gears and talk about solving hard problems. I can't think of a more complicated industry than wireless and the industry that you're in. What are the biggest pieces of advice you have for our listeners and viewers when it comes to solving hard problems from an operations perspective?
Yeah. I would say I've had no shortage of tough challenges to solve over the years. And for me, I have a favorite way I like to do it. I actually like to flip about how I think about the problem. And for me, I sit down, whether it's asking my team, whether it's asking myself, I actually say, what would have to be true to do whatever the hard thing is, right? And I find this simple question shifts perspectives. It gets people to think about what are the things that I would have to go try to accomplish to do this impossible thing or to solve this really hard, task that is put in front of me, or, roll out something that is extremely complicated. And it then allows you to go solve each of those individually or understand what needs to be done. And so a lot of times it's really just about breaking it down, and thinking about it, like I said, from a different perspective. Also, when you ask people to try to go solve problems that may impact them themselves, they have a hard time doing that. It could be, how do you go eliminate a particular, type of back office work, right? That's something on operations we're always doing. We're always trying to figure out, how do you streamline the back office work? Well, when if you ask somebody, hey, go get rid of that, they're going to come with that with a different perspective. But if you flip it around and say, what would have to be true if you didn't want any back office work?
Hmm.
Knowing that you're never going to eliminate it all, they start to give you all of the things that would have to happen.
Hmm.
And it starts to get them really with the first steps of, oh, this is how I need to go solve this. These are the first steps I've got to go take. These are the things I need to think about. So for me, I have found that and used that really for the past probably 15 years. And to date, I haven't found a problem I couldn't solve yet.
I love that, Kimberly. I think that is so smart. Why do you think just asking that question, what would have to be true to solve this problem, is so effective?
I think it just gives people a different way to think about it. I think it allows them to get out of their own way. I think sometimes we get in our own way. I think about one of the hardest problems I ever had to solve. And I got in the elevator. I'd come off of a meeting, got in the elevator. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I was just like, it felt nearly impossible. And it just allowed me to think differently, to be like, okay, well, these are all the things that I have to go do. And then it really allowed me to put into bite-sized, problems then to go figure out, okay, what would it take for that one? What would it take for this particular one? You'll get to some of them, you'll be like, gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do that one, or maybe I don't. And that's okay. That becomes one of your risks
Mhm.
that you've got out there. And so I think it's just a different frame of mind that it helps people get out of their own way. Because I think, like I said, we get in our own way a lot of times in trying to solve things.
I love this concept for the individual. Like, we get so obsessed and fixed on certain ideas, and you're right, you have to get out of your own way. So I think everyone listening should try and apply this to themselves, like in their own personal life and at work. Like, if I did that, what do I need to be able to do that, or what can I let go of? Because sometimes we can't let go of things that are comforts that we actually don't need.
Yeah. Sometimes we are our own worst enemy.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, love that. I can just imagine you solving your problem with the elevator, like, in the time it took you to get from, let's say, the 12th floor to the 1st floor at T-Mobile, like, the wheels just started turning.
They were.
Let's talk about more of, like, the tactical and the engine room of listening to customers. I know this is something you're passionate about, Kimberly. Tell us what your customer listening program looks like.
What I'll say, it first starts with every single customer input is important. And people might be like, really, you can't go solve something just off of one customer. And I'll say you can't. And the thing I love about that is it actually helps you identify what's actually happening to other customers. Because if it's happening to one, it's happening to other customers. And that's an important piece. The other piece that I would say is about being curious. You have to truly be curious. I was on a plane last night and listening to the flight attendant, and they commented on their device that they were using and how something wasn't loading correctly. Well, I was curious enough, and we provide that service for them. I was curious enough to have a conversation with them as the flight attendant on the plane to understand what was going on. Now, that may be a one-off issue for them. It could be something that is within their own company's, software, or it might not be. It might be the start of a bigger problem, right? The tip of the iceberg where there's more there. And so I think the first thing is really listening and being okay with going down, and researching one customer issue. We have, so it might be, how do you actually do that? We have formal programs. We have a program called T Voice, which is one of my favorites. And it's really where our frontline teams get the opportunity to share the concerns that they hear from their customers. So it's not about work issues. It's really about customer pain points. And then we have a team of folks that really look and understand, okay, is this an issue for one person? Is it an issue for multiple people? But each and every one of them get looked at. And so it's our way of saying, how do we get everybody's feedback and then be able to really kind of bring that back into our operations and our headquarters teams to be able to look to say, What do we need to go solve for? Is there something bigger there? So for me, it's listen to the one. You can change you can change processes and policies based off of just one customer because it is impacting others. And be curious. Always ask the next question because you never know what you're going to find. You're typically going to find a new problem to go solve.
What I'm hearing, Kimberly, is you have the entrepreneurial mindset, but at a big company, which is just really rare. How do you maintain that culture from the early days, but not let having a big company get in the way where it's like every employee feels like an owner?
I think part of it is one, making them an owner. That was one of the things I think that was a big thing that we did is that each and every one of our employees is an owner with the company. But I also think it's making sure when they reach out, when they share, that you stop and give each and every person the importance that they deserve. Doesn't matter about title, doesn't matter about roles. If somebody's got a concern, whether it's for a customer or their own, how do you stop and make sure that gets the proper attention? Because that starts to build the ownership, the pride. I think, also, making sure that people know where to go, that they feel like they have someone they can reach out to when they don't know how to, solve a problem. And again, giving them the attention and the respect that they deserve when bringing it up. Like I said, I have plenty of folks. I don't care who it is that reaches out to me, whether it's, somebody on our sales side or somebody, in any one of the teams. You got to treat each of those with importance because that matters. That creates and continues to build that culture of ownership, that culture of caring, that culture of customer love at scale, which is our desire to be able to go do is, you know, go take every one of our customers and make sure that we are able to meet the needs that they have.
So when we think about zooming in to the individual customer, this is a hard thing to do. But now with AI and technology and automation, many companies are having an easier time listening to all the feedback and distilling it. Is that something that you're involved with at T-Mobile?
Definitely taking part in figuring out how we want to shape some of the AI pieces. We've got teams that are doing a lot of great work around AI. When I think about it in my organization or, in our customer facing groups, it's a lot about how do we make sure we're using AI to power our people as well. So a lot of that's where a lot of my focus is. How do we power them to be able to have the information they need faster, more comprehensive, so they can then apply that to the customer situation. So for me, it's the how do you use AI to power the human touch or the human interaction that you're still going to have.
Can I just ask, what does it look like at T-Mobile? Is there an AI task force? Is every leader being trained in AI? Is there a mandate or like a mission statement around it? What does it look like?
We really aspire to be a digitally, enabled company. And we do have individuals at all levels of leadership that are focused solely on AI. So we have teams that are looking at the strategy that we want to be able to use, the partnerships of how we work with some of the companies out there around AI. We're absolutely testing AI at a variety of levels. We've started both at our frontline levels as well as our leadership levels. So you're kind of getting both groups really engaged in it. And then each of us also within our organizations are looking at how we are going to bring AI into, really what we want to be able to do. And so for me, in partnering with some of my peers, we're really looking at, like I said, how do we create the superpowers for our people in, using AI so they can better service customers, better get to the information. Because to your point, wireless is complex. Technology businesses are complex. And there's a lot of complexity that we ask our teams to be able to sort through. And so if we can use AI to help them sort through that information so they can solve the customer's issue faster, it's just going to make it that much better of an experience. So it's a little bit of both.
Hmm. Okay. So we talked a lot about culture today. I want to go back to the discussion of culture. Many people today, especially on LinkedIn, are talking about return to office mandates and how do we create an accountable culture. Do you have any thoughts on the importance of team culture, but also how you do that? Is return to office the answer? Is remote work the answer? Like, what does that look like?
Yeah. So I would say it absolutely plays a big piece into just how you go solve and take care of problems. Being in office and being able to collaborate, understand, it's just easier. You can understand people's, are they leaning in? Are they kind of checking out? Are they, do they have a concern that they want to share or don't they? You can see that so much better when you're in person and collaborating together. The other pieces I think you get is the collaboration that happens outside of whether it's Zoom meetings or Teams meetings. when everybody's at home, you got to make a meeting to be able to have a conversation. When you're in the office, you have the ability to walk down the hall. You may see somebody and you have that 5-minute conversation that may help you lead into something else that you need to go do or solve a problem that you need to go attack. And so for me, it is a big piece from a problem solving perspective. I think it's also big in getting into team camaraderie and how do you make sure that you can lean on your team when you're trying to, whether it's solve a problem, figure out something new, or just want to have fun.
Hmm.
That's the other piece, right? Like fun is such a key importance to the culture. Understanding, what somebody's family is, or how were their kids that day. Those all play into who you are as a person, and that's just harder to do when you're not in the office. Now, I would say we have gone to a hybrid in most of our teams where you get some days in office and some days at home. So it gives a little bit of that flexibility and balance because we also realize that there's a lot of commitments that people have outside of work, right? Sometimes you've got to be at home to, answer the delivery, that's coming or do different things. And so having that flexibility that allow people the ability to be able to do both is also important, I think.
So I agree that in-person collaboration is better, that even those little water cooler conversations about people's kids or maybe a problem that's arisen with customers and how to best solve it, like in-person conversation is just the best way to build teams. What is the importance of investing in team culture and your team beyond the status quo?
I think investing in the team is critical. You've got to have folks that want to be there. They're happy about being at work. They want to be able to do the things that they're doing. Otherwise, it I don't know if they do their best work. I think people are doing their best work when they're happy. And so I think investing in that team culture, both from a development perspective, understanding where people want to go, like, is this the career that they want? Do they want it? Do they aspire to do something different in a career? And how do you help them get there? Is it, they want to be the best at what they're doing right now? And how can we invest in that? Is another key piece. I also think, like I said, the fun piece of it and getting to know each other is an important piece. So many times people work on teams and they don't know anything about anybody else they're working with. And that's just one, it's just not a lot of fun. And two, when the days are tough, because there are going to be tough days, you're going to need people to lean on at work. And so how do you have that team that you feel like you can lean on, that you feel like can be there when maybe the day's not going so well? So for me, it's really both of those.
So I love that fun is an important aspect of working at T-Mobile. It certainly looks fun from all the pictures through the years and the magenta. It sounds like you guys really have your head around how to create that customer-centric culture and you can have both happy employees and happy customers. Let's get to know you a little bit, Kimberly. Are you ready for some rapid fire fun questions? We're going to have fun.
I Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's dive in. What's the most important part of your morning routine?
So for me, I got to get up and see what's on my calendar so I know what's doing it. And then I actually don't do anything work related for like the next 30 minutes. I'm usually streaming something or doing that while I'm getting ready. So it's kind of get up, figure out what I got to do, and then really turn it off for about 30 minutes.
Mhm, got it. Okay. What show are you currently streaming?
So I am a foodie by heart. And so right now, Wild Card Kitchen on Food Network is one of the favorites that I've just started watching.
Nice. What's your idea of perfect happiness?
For me, it's seeing joy in my family. So my husband, my son, my daughter, when they are happy and doing fun things, I love that.
What is one mental health strategy for managing hard days?
So for me, to take my mind off of stressful days, it is listening to my favorite music, usually extremely loud, in my car on my way to or from the office. It just allows me to kind of step away and relax for a minute.
What's your favorite type of vacation?
For me, it's exploring new cities and specifically trying new foods. So we always try to do food tours in new cities and get a little bit of history, a little bit of food, and see some great sights.
If you could have lunch with anyone dead or alive, who would it be?
Steve Jobs.
Mhm. Okay. If you had to describe your outlook in one quick motto, what would it be?
Be curious. You never know where it's going to take you and what problem you might get to solve when you get there.
Love that. Well, this has been so fun, Kimberly. I hope you'll come back and tell us about all the great things T-Mobile is doing next year. Really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great. Thank you, Blake.
Everybody, you've been tuning into the Modern Customer Podcast. Thanks for watching and listening. Until next time. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on social media, including Instagram, LinkedIn, X, and more.